When you hold a dollar bill in your hands, what do you think you're holding? Paper, a code, or something more? Humanity has built entire empires on these thin sheets of paper and lines in banking systems. We believe they have value. We believe so deeply that we're willing to work months, years, decades just to obtain these treasured symbols. For thousands of years, people searched for a universal equivalent of value. Today, the entire modern world stands on an invisible foundation of trust and agreements that exist only in people's heads. But what if that foundation cracks? What if one day we wake up and the numbers in our accounts suddenly lose all meaning? We live in a world where everything can be bought: a house, a car, a plane ticket, even an organ for transplant. But almost no one thinks about how the thing we pay with actually works. Money isn't just coins and banknotes, not just zeros and ones in a banking app. It's a contract, a social agreement, collective belief, and simultaneously, perhaps one of the most massive illusions humans have ever created. Or maybe not. What if this is still the most reliable code in human history? A code tested by centuries, wars, and crises. A code on which the entire global economy still stands. Today, we're going to figure out where money comes from, what makes it real, and what will become the new currency of trust. Hold on, before we dive into this research, I need to know something. Where are you joining from, and what time is it there right now? Country, city, local time? Put it all in the comments below. I really want to see how global this is. Picture an ancient settlement, smoke from fires, the smell of earth and clay. One person offers another a bag of grain, hoping to receive an axe. But the blacksmith doesn't need grain. He needs arrows, and the archer has his own needs. This was the chaos of barter. This simple form of exchange worked in tight-knit communities where everyone knew the value of their neighbor's labor. But fundamental problems were obvious. How do you value labor when one person's goods spoil in days, while another's creation serves for years? How do you preserve value for the future when grain can rot and fabric can wear out? This unsolvable puzzle hung in the air, and then humanity found a way out. Commodity money appeared, not an abstraction, but objects that had their own intrinsic value. In Africa and Asia, these were cowrie shells. In ancient Greece, copper ingots from which weapons could be forged. In China, bronze knives and spades that became the first coins. In medieval Russia, the pelts of fur-bearing animals providing warmth became the measure of wealth. This was a brilliant compromise. Value not only in the promise, but in the thing itself. But they too had flaws. They could be damaged, lost. Their value depended on countless circumstances. The world needed something truly universal. And that something was found. Gold. Its brilliance captivated. Rare, non-corrosive, eternal. An ingot was easy to divide, meaning it was easy to pay with. Gold became the symbol of wealth. For centuries, global trade revolved around it. Tons of precious metal on ships risked crossing seas to replenish royal treasuries. Blood was spilled for the right to control its extraction. It seemed this system would exist forever. However, its time too would pass. The rapid development of global trade required a lighter and more flexible instrument. In the metal-scented bank vaults, an idea was born. Why haul heavy gold when you can trust? Thus, paper banknotes appeared. At first, these were modest receipts. The bearer shall be paid so much gold. This is how the gold standard worked, an era when every banknote was not just paper, but an iron promise backed by real metal in storage. Trust seemed unshakable. People carried light stacks of banknotes in their pockets instead of heavy chests. The world believed in paper. But the 20th century brought upheaval. World wars and the Great Depression required expenditures for which all the gold in the world would not suffice. The system creaked and cracked at the seams. And then came the fateful day. August 15th, 1971. President Richard Nixon addressed the nation. His words sounded like thunder from a clear sky. The dollar can no longer be exchanged for gold. This event went down in history as the Nixon shock. In one instant, the gold standard collapsed. The promise turned into something new. Paper money began to exist on its own, not as a receipt for metal, but as value designated by the state. They received a name, fiat, from the Latin, let it be so. Their strength now rested not on the gleam of gold in a vault, but on fragile, intangible trust in those who printed them. Trust in the flag, in power, in economic might. But what if that trust collapses? History knows the answer. If fiat money freed us from the weight of metal, the next step was even more radical. The rejection of cash as a physical object altogether. The idea of storing value not in a leather wallet, but as digits in a bank account began to take shape in the mid-20th century. Imagine America in 1950. Cardboard cards from Diners Club, the first swallows allowing payment at restaurants and hotels without cash. A bit later, plastic from American Express, and in 1958, the revolutionary bank AmeriCard, the ancestor of Visa. This was a breakthrough in convenience, but the real technological leap happened in the 60s. IBM engineers gave the world the magnetic stripe. Now data about the owner could be stored and read automatically. The world of money accelerated. In the 80s came ATMs, chip cards with the EMV standard, and PIN codes making payments more secure. But money was still tied to plastic. In parallel, the invisible arteries of the financial world were being created. In 1973, the SWIFT network was born, a protocol allowing money to be transferred between countries in hours, not weeks. The late 90s opened a new era: electronic payments via the internet, PayPal, web money, various digital wallets. These names became symbols of a new reality. Further, more, and even faster. Mobile payments and transfers by phone number. Money became increasingly ephemeral. And in recent years, what seemed like the limit of convenience arrived. Biometric payments. Simply show your face or apply your finger. In China, Alipay and WeChat Pay test three-dimensional facial recognition in cafes and shops. Face pay systems are being implemented globally. A second glance at the terminal camera and payment is complete. In the US and EU, biometrics often serves as additional protection. The advantages are obvious: speed, no need for cards or phones, difficulty of stealing biometric data. But there's a dark side. Biometrics are unique and unchangeable. If data falls into the wrong hands, changing your password will be impossible. And most importantly, this system is absolutely centralized. The operator, the bank, sees every transaction and can shut off access at any moment. How does this miracle work? You tap your card, phone, or scan your face. The terminal encrypts the data and sends it to the bank. The bank verifies authenticity. The request goes through networks like Visa, MasterCard, or local systems to the issuing bank. The issuer checks balance, history, suspicious operations. Response: approved. And all this takes less than 3 seconds. It seems like magic, reliable and fast, but at its heart is a key feature: centralization. Every payment, every transfer goes through a bank, payment system, regulators. This means at any moment, by someone's will, your transaction can be stopped, examined, and blocked. You don't fully own your money, you merely rent access to it. Today, around 80% of all payments in the world are digital. In the US, people pay with cash in only 14% of cases, and mostly for small expenses. In Australia, just 6%. The shift away from cash means transparency, fighting the shadow economy, increased tax collection, but the flip side is vulnerability. Cut the power, paralyze the internet, and the economy freezes. Stores can't sell, buyers panic. Dependence on digital infrastructure makes the world fragile to attacks and blockades. But even in this world of instant digital payments, the biggest secret of money isn't hidden in the terminal. The real magic, the real power is somewhere else. Who decides how much of this money even exists? The answer lies in an ancient but still relevant mechanism. Seigniorage. Who actually creates money today? Formally, central banks. They decide how much money the economy needs, set key interest rates, fight inflation, and can turn on the printing press, issuing new banknotes and coins. But here's the crucial nuance that few think about. The bulk of money in the modern world is created not by central banks, but by commercial banks. And they do this through the magical mechanism of credit emission. Imagine you go to a bank for a mortgage. The bank doesn't open a safe and pull out a stack of bills. It simply creates an entry in your account. This money didn't exist a second ago. It's born at the moment of loan issuance, out of thin air. In return, the bank gets your obligation to repay the debt with interest. And when you pay off the loan, this created money disappears from the system. That's how the modern money machine works. And it rests on the same thing. Trust. Trust in banks, in the economy, and the state standing behind it all. But there's another way the state earns from money itself. Seigniorage is the difference between the face value of a bill and its cost of production. Imagine printing a $100 bill costs only about 14 cents, counting paper, ink, security features, and labor. The remaining $99.86 is pure profit for the state. The more money printed, the higher the income. The temptation is great. But the flip side of seigniorage and credit emission is frightening. If you print too much cheap money, there will be more of it in the economy than real goods and services, and then prices will creep up, and the purchasing power of your savings will melt away. This is inflation. History is full of tragic examples. Hyperinflation in Zimbabwe, the devaluation of the German mark in the 20s. It all started with the temptation of easy money for quick income and ended in collapse. Why? Because money isn't metal or paper. It's trust. We accept it because we believe. Tomorrow, for this piece of paper or digit on a screen, we'll buy bread, fill the tank, pay for housing. We believe that salary is real value, not just a number. We believe that taxes are a contribution to the common good. But what if that belief collapses? Unfortunately, this has happened more than once, and those events were truly terrifying. Germany, 1923. A picture of apocalypse. People wheel carts loaded with stacks of banknotes, not to buy a house, but a loaf of bread. Prices double every day, then every hour. Hyperinflation devours savings, wages, pensions at the speed of a wildfire. Trillions of marks become garbage faster than the ink on them can dry. Despair births monstrous absurdity. People begin wallpapering walls with money. It's cheaper than buying real wallpaper. Or they burn money in stoves. Banknotes burn longer and hotter than the firewood they could buy. This was something more than an economic crisis. It was the collapse of society's very foundation. Faith in the state. Zimbabwe, 2008. Inflation reaches 79 billion% per month, an absolutely incomprehensible figure. Banknotes of $100 trillion still aren't enough to buy a loaf of bread. Despair leads to the same absurdity as in Weimar Germany. People burn money in stoves simply because banknotes are cheaper than firewood. The smell of burning paper becomes a symbol. What disappears isn't currency, but confidence in the future itself. Venezuela, our present day. People go to the store with bags of bills and carry away only a couple kilos of rice. Prices change not once a month, not once a week, but several times a day. Money turns into waste paper faster than you can spend it. When currency stops storing value, the entire everyday economy collapses. People return to barter or the black market. The savings of millions evaporate, consumed by inflation in a matter of days. And worst of all, the very habit of trusting the state disappears. Flight begins. People seek support where they still see value: in gold, in dollars, in real estate, in cryptocurrencies. The lesson of history is harsh and unambiguous. When the state loses trust, its currency dies with it, and with it, pensions, salaries, and the very sense of stability on which society rests. And the cause no longer matters much, whether it's irresponsible monetary policy, as in Germany in the 20s, or political crisis, as in Zimbabwe or Venezuela. It's in just such an atmosphere of distrust and doubt that 2008 arrives. The world faces not localized hyperinflation, but a global crisis of trust. The largest financial markets plunge into chaos. Lehman Brothers, a legendary investment bank with a 158-year history that survived the American Civil War and the Great Depression, collapses in a matter of days. This isn't just a company bankruptcy, it's the collapse of a symbol. Offices empty out. Traders who just yesterday were deciding the fates of markets carry out boxes with personal belongings against a backdrop of universal panic. Stocks turn to dust. A wave of horror rolls across the entire world. Stock indices fall, banks and companies close. Millions of people lose their jobs. Kilometer-long lines form at ATMs. People desperately try to withdraw their savings before the system collapses completely. Millions of families watch their retirement savings, investments, and deposits turn to nothing. And the state rushes to save the giants, pouring billions of dollars into them. And the most terrible thing is that these funds come from the taxes of those very people standing in lines at ATMs. Absurdity and bitterness. Trust in the financial system built over decades is undermined. People ask terrible questions. If banks with century-old histories collapse in a week, and governments can simply create trillions out of thin air, why should we trust them? It's at this very moment, in October 2008, that a strange letter appears in a cryptography mailing list. In it, a link to a 9-page PDF file. The title sounds like a challenge. Bitcoin, a peer-to-peer electronic cash system. The author hid behind the pseudonym Satoshi Nakamoto. Who is he? A lone genius? A group of enthusiasts? A government agent? This document isn't a dry technical manual, it's a manifesto. A philosophical shot at the heart of the old system. It describes a radically new concept of money. A system without intermediaries, without central banks, without a single issuer. Rules are sewn into code. Trust is based not on politicians' promises, but on mathematics and cryptography, a model where currency can't be printed on a whim, where every transaction is recorded in a distributed, transparent, and protected ledger. The blockchain. The heart of Bitcoin is the proof-of-work principle. This isn't just an algorithm, it's a philosophy, the very essence of its appearance. The issuance of new coins is strictly limited by mathematics. No central bank or finance minister can simply turn on a machine and print more bitcoins. Each coin is the result of titanic computational work. Imagine, all over the world, in noisy data centers, hot garages, against the backdrop of humming power station transformers, Thousands upon thousands of computers compete in a global race. Their goal? To be the first to solve an incredibly complex mathematical problem, to find that unique hash. The winner receives a reward: new bitcoins. This process is called mining. It requires monstrous resources, gigawatts of electricity, tons of equipment, powerful cooling systems. From the point of view of a traditional financier, wild inefficiency. But this very inefficiency is a brilliant protective mechanism. It makes Bitcoin resilient. It's impossible to fake the blockchain, impossible to centrally control emission. Everything is distributed, everything is transparent, everything obeys the cold logic of an algorithm. Trust in code. The first loud story from the real world sounds today like a parable. May 22, 2010. Programmer Laszlo Hanyecz paid 10,000 bitcoins for 2 pizzas. Today, that sum is equivalent to hundreds of millions of dollars. Back then, it was a naive but incredibly important gesture. Can you even buy something real with these digital coins? Then came the euphoria of the ICO boom in the mid-2010s. Startups issued tokens, collected millions of dollars on an idea, often without even a real prototype. The world was flooded with promises of a new economy. And in 2017, the bubble burst. Prices collapsed, thousands of projects vanished, investors lost billions, a harsh reckoning for excitement. But the ideas laid down by Satoshi didn't die. New powerful players came to them: major banks, investment funds, tech giants. Bitcoin futures appeared. It was discussed in parliaments and courts. Bitcoin stopped being an underground toy for geeks. It became a full-fledged, albeit risky, asset of the global financial market. Yes, it's still volatile. Its price can jump or crash by tens of % in a day. But it transformed into a powerful symbol of financial independence, the idea of digital property, deep distrust of traditional institutions. For some, a tool for speculation. For others, a safe haven, a refuge from inflation and central bank arbitrariness. It divides, it provokes, but it's already part of our reality. This new reality makes you think. Where are money actually born? Two systems give diametrically opposite answers. In the world of fiat, in noisy guarded workshops of central bank printing facilities, stacks of brand new bills with watermarks come off the conveyor. The cost of a paper bill is a paltry 14 cents, but as soon as the necessary symbols are applied to it, it magically turns into $100. The central bank launches this money into the economy through banks, loans, government spending, trying to control their quantity. The plus is flexibility. In a crisis, you can quickly print more money, trying to revive the economy. The minus is inflation. The more new money, the less the old is worth. Value is diluted. In the world of Bitcoin, there are no printing houses, no decrees from above deciding the fate of the money supply. Instead, huge farms humming with forests of graphics cards or specialized ASIC processors. Miners spend megawatts of electricity, fight heat, maintain equipment operation 24/7, participating in that very race for the hash. The cost of Bitcoin is determined not by paper and paint, but by the price of electricity, algorithm complexity, and hardware power. This is mining. In the fiat system, emission is a policy instrument. It can be expanded or contracted by decision of authorities. In Bitcoin, emission is rigidly programmed into the code. The total number of coins is limited to 21 million. The reward to miners per block is cut in half every 4 years. This is called the halving, an iron defense against arbitrary inflation. But this creates another problem: wild volatility. The rate can soar or crash by tens of % in a few hours against the backdrop of news, speculative demand, or panic selling. In the end, two systems, two philosophical approaches. Fiat. Trust in the state, the ability to maneuver the money supply and manage the economy, but at the same time, the risk of devaluation. Mining. Trust in the algorithm, predictability of issuance, protection from manual intervention, and constant play in a market with high volatility. And while this philosophical confrontation continues, governments are already creating what could become a compromise, or the final victory of one model. In recent years, governments around the world have undertaken the creation of CBDCs, central bank digital currencies. If a banknote is a material carrier of value and a bank account is a record in a private bank system, then CBDC is a new level. Digital money issued directly by the central bank, bypassing private intermediaries. China is the leader in the race. The digital yuan has been tested since 2020 in dozens of cities, used in transport systems, supermarkets, and online stores. The European Union is developing the digital euro with a promise of implementation by 2027. Sweden's e-krona is already in pilot, tested in conjunction with mobile applications. In the US, the Federal Reserve is researching a digital dollar. For the user, everything looks simple. An app on a smartphone, transfer in seconds, no cash, minimal commissions. But convenience has a price. Every transaction is recorded. Every payment is transparent to the state. This means you can instantly freeze an account or part of funds, track spending to the penny, limit certain purchases, for example, impose limits on alcohol or trips abroad, automatically deduct taxes and fines. Here's what's critically important to see through the veiled euphoria of high technology. Digital currency isn't just new money, it's an instrument of financial control and social management. On the other pole is DeFi, a world where there are no intermediary banks and government servers. You essentially can be your own bank, but all responsibility is on you alone. Loss of a key equals total loss of money. An error in a transaction, there's no rollback. Freedom is absolute and frighteningly risky. And here's the main question that will determine the future of our finances. What's more valuable to us? Absolute security and predictability guaranteed by the state, but at the cost of total control and loss of privacy? Or financial freedom and independence, but at the cost of full personal responsibility and high risks? Everyone answers this question for themselves. But one thing is obvious. The past of money is the key to understanding what it can become tomorrow. So we've traveled the path from cowrie shells to binary codes on servers, from the gleam of gold in royal treasuries to Bitcoin existing only on the network. And each time, the value of money was born not from the technology itself, but from people's trust. Once, a shell became valuable because a tribe decided it was rare and beautiful. Gold became wealth because peoples agreed to value it. The dollar became the world currency because millions believe in the economic power of the United States. Bitcoin became a symbol of financial independence because people all over the planet decided they were ready to store their capital here. Technologies can and will change. New forms of money will appear. But the principle is eternal. Money works only when we believe in it and voluntarily choose to use it. How do you preserve and multiply your money in this ever-changing world? You don't need to be a financial genius. You need to be attentive and responsible. Don't put everything in one basket. Distribute assets among currencies, banks, and instruments. Inflation is real. Simply saving is no longer a strategy. Study what you invest in, even if it's a deposit in a bank. Monitor cybersecurity. In the digital world, this is the foundation of fund safety. Money isn't a lottery. It's a system requiring understanding and responsibility. And the sooner you start treating it exactly that way, the more stable your financial tomorrow will be. Thanks for watching till the end. If you're here, you're one of those who want to understand how the financial system really works. Subscribe, new research tomorrow. And drop a comment. What do you think about this? Your perspective matters.